Hey, Ron Newcomb here with the Indie Coach Podcast. I'm here with my friend Vivian, who is a fellow Virginia filmmaker, which we are rare. There's not a ton of us here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but when we find each other, we really do kind of come together, help each other out. It's a really good community here on the East Coast. So I wanted to bring her on. She's doing some really cool things, has some really good experience. One of her projects that I got to see, I mean, the trailer was just butter. It was so beautiful. The color grading, it was really well done. I could tell just by the quality. So I wanted to get Vivian on and just kind of talk about it. And the more that her and I have gotten to know each other just over email and things, I knew she had a wealth of knowledge. She also teaches, I believe, still at an adjunct level down in Richmond. And so I wanted to kind of get you on. But at first, to kind of set the stage, Vivian, can you maybe talk a little bit about your origin story? How did you get into this crazy thing of film?
Yeah. So thank you so much, Ron, for having me on. I didn't go to film school. So I I went to school for advertising. That's my background. And I have an undergrad and a master's degree in advertising and started out in the agency world, and I was a copywriter. So I wrote everything from websites to billboards to print ads, radio spots and commercials. And I found that when I sold a commercial spot and got on set and got to see my words come to life on screen, that was the magic for me.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the back of my brain, I said to myself, I'm going to figure out a way to make it so that I'm only doing this. This is the thing that I want to do. I really loved film production. Um, but I took another detour on my way to get there into academia. So I spent about 8 years working at ad agencies and then moved into becoming a professor. And I taught for 10 years at Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. First in their advertising design department and then in their film department. I made a lot of uh, connections in the film department, and we did a lot of collaborative work because my ad students were more focused on the design piece, but I knew that video was kind of the wave of the future. So we started doing a lot of, branded content and webisodes and things like that together. And then when the school shut down the ad department, the film department sort of absorbed me as one of their own, which was great for me because then I got to learn from all of these really fantastic professors in the film department on their craft and what they do. So everything from directing and cinematography to screenwriting. And I wanted to get into more long form writing and writing screenplays. And so that was super helpful for my education. And then we moved to Richmond in 2020 for my husband's job, which was smack dab in the middle of COVID. And I couldn't really get another job at that point. And so I decided to focus on my screenwriting craft. And I worked with one of my colleagues at Ringling College. His name is Patrick Alexander. He and I became co-writers, and we wrote 3 features together in the span of about 2 years during COVID and the strikes and all the stuff that was going on. And then when we came out of that time, I reached out to VCU and started adjuncting in their cinema department. And then meeting all the other adjunct professors who are working in the industry here in Richmond, I started to get better connected and started to move into freelance producing and was doing shorts. And then in 2024, I got hired by Max Fisher, who owns Gearhead Camera here in town, to produce his feature, Saturnalia. And then, we finished that film and I started working on sales and distribution and marketing, which sort of tapped back into my previous career
Yeah.
for that film. And I just also founded my own production company called Third Eye Films last year after, freelance producing as a producer for hire for a number of years and really thought, I'm not going to wait on anybody at this point to kind of greenlight me. I'm going to greenlight myself. And so I founded my production company, and I like to say we make horror with a heartbeat. I focus on emotionally grounded but genre-driven stories, and typically female-led, whether in front of or behind the camera. So that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
Awesome. So you had done this other film as a producer. You were brought on to that. What was the kind of distribution plan? The sizzle, of course, the fun is production, but then you've got post and then getting it out there. The eyeballs and the fandom is everything. A film needs to have an audience. And so how did you help kind of navigate that film through the process? Did you go to any festivals, any markets? What was kind of the sales life cycle for that particular film?
Yeah, so Saturnalia is a love letter to the sort of 1970s giallo films, which have a huge cult fan base. It's very niche, it's a genre within a genre, but the people who love giallo films are diehard lovers of the genre, and there's not that many new ones coming out. So it was somewhat of an opportunity in that we got to kind of reinvigorate a genre, but then tap into a very dedicated fan base. And so when it came time for sales and distribution on the back end, we did a number of things. I went to the Cannes Film Market, and I didn't have a sales rep or anything at the time. I went as a producer to try to navigate the market and figure out what that was all about and try to book meetings with sales agents and distributors and introduce them to my film and show them my trailer and try to get them interested in watching a screener. And so that was a whole new process for me, which was really interesting, and we can kind of dig into that in more depth. But it was really a matter of, yeah, looking at the distribution landscape and targeting the outlets that are very horror centric, because it is a horror film, because it is a very specific type of horror film being giallo. We were looking for other distributors that had giallo films in their libraries, and had experience distributing that kind of film. So that really allowed me to kind of target those outlets very specifically.
What made you pick Cannes versus something like Berlin or AFM, or was it just because that kind of was the next one in line, from like a calendar perspective? Why Cannes? And then for people that don't really know, can you lay out the difference between a market and a festival and why you would go to kind of either one? The beauty of Cannes, of course, and some of these other ones, wonder why these festivals are so premier. It's because generally they have a market with it. And when you have that combination, you're going to get the money to show up, as in all the A-list actors. That's why they go to Berlin and Cannes. You see the actors there because the industry is trying to flex a little bit. The buyers and sellers are there. Anyways, I'm stealing maybe some of your answer.
Yeah.
Why Cannes?
Yeah, so it was a timing thing. We had finished the film in January of 2025, and I was starting to do some initial outreach to sales agents and distributors in February, and very quickly started getting the emails bounce back that they were in Berlin, right? And so it was like, okay, well, we've sort of missed the boat on Berlin, and the next one coming up was Cannes. And I had a number of contacts in the film commission world who were going to Cannes.
Mm.
And I had been talking to some of them because I also had another feature in development. And they sort of encouraged me to go to Cannes. They were like, listen, if you've got one feature done and one feature in development, you should come to Cannes, you should come to the market and try to sell one, get interest in the other, and just sort of really put yourself out there as an indie film producer. And so because I knew them, they were going to have a booth, a Film USA booth. They were like, this can be your home base. You'll know us. You can check in with us throughout the day. They do a lot of programming with Stage 32 as well. So they had a lot of workshops and educational sessions going on that were really beneficial. And yeah, so just knowing some people that were going, and then being able to kind of have a reason to reach out to the sales agents now beyond just, hey, here's my trailer. Are you interested? It was, hey, I'm going to be in Cannes. I would really love to meet up with you. Let's schedule a meeting while I'm there. And the other thing that going to Cannes does, when you get your accreditation as a producer and you get your badge, you get access to a website called Cinando, Cinando. And it is a database of sales agents and distributors and producers and financiers and festival, organizers. And that really unlocked sort of a whole new world for me because before, I was researching films and just reaching out to the like info at ifcfilms.com, right? And, that doesn't get you very far.
No, yeah.
But Sinando gives you access to actual names of people and what they do within each department. So, I figured out, okay, I'm looking for the acquisitions people. They are the people that are acquiring the titles in their libraries. And so then I could get a name, I could get an email, I could get a phone number, and I could reach out to people directly in the acquisitions departments. And I started getting a lot more traction and a lot more response that way when I did that. So that was a really helpful database. But yes, there is a huge difference between a film market and a film festival. Film festivals, which is what most independent filmmakers go to, right? They go to their local or regional film festival with their film. Those are not markets. Those are not places that are frequented by sales agents and distributors and buyers and territories. And so you're putting your film in a festival is for the fans, right? It's to get an audience, it's to get people in the theater to watch your movie, but it's not necessarily going to help you sell your movie. So the film markets, which are, Berlin, Cannes, Toronto, AFM, and sometimes they are attached to a festival, right? Like you mentioned, the bigger ones, the big five, right? But it's a whole separate world inside of the festival system, right? So you're on the Palais at Cannes and there's a theater where, Tom Cruise and all of the stars are walking the red carpet and they're going into their screening. And then down in the basement is where the market is. And it's like a big trade show, and every sales agent or distributor has a booth and they've got movie posters up in their booth of all the movies in their, library that they're trying to sell to the different channels and the different territories. And they're in meetings, they're showing trailers, they're trying to get people to buy these films. And I will say the first part of the market, the distributors are more interested in kind of trying to sell the library of films that they currently have. Towards the end of the market is when they're more open to taking meetings with producers that are looking to get a sales agent or distributor to sell their film. So yeah, but if you've never been to a film market before, the best way I can describe it is like a big film expo or trade show where everybody's got a cubicle, everybody's got a booth, they've got their posters up, they've got, TV screens that are playing trailers and you just got to walk up to people and have the confidence to say, "Hi, I'm Vivian Owen. I'm an independent producer. I've got a horror feature called Saturnalia that I think would be right up your alley. Do you have 15 minutes to sit and chat with me about it,
Yeah. And what I love about that is why they're there, right? And they're in the business of acquiring content and selling that content. And so they're not hiding, right? They are
Right.
looking for content. They need us. And yet you also said something that unfortunately through the school of hard knocks, because I too did not go to film school, I was at AFM, and you have to learn when to go after or set up a meeting with them.
Yes.
As you indicated, at the front of the festival, or I'm sorry, the film market, at the front
Yes.
of it, like the first 3 days, they're all about selling. So their
Yes.
meetings are booked with buyers. So you
Yes.
have this expo, like Vivian said, and buyers and sellers from all over the world come to these markets to scoop up content for their territory and take it back. And then they make money off selling the films and the TV shows in their home country, right? So
Right.
that's the market that is doing it. And there's several of them. There is Cannes, Berlin, AFM, Toronto, Film Mart, which is in Hong Kong. I think that one's going on right now. There's like 11 of them. There's, another South American one. There's a MIT TV, which is an American one, but for television. But you're
Yes.
looking for film markets, which I find much more personally valuable. And when they have a festival like Cannes, Berlin, Toronto, attached to it, all the better. You get to geek out and see some films and stuff. But if you haven't been to AFM, the American film market, you owe yourself to go check it out. It's a really, really good experience. If you make some legitimate, real good contacts. But to also be clear, most of them are international sales agents. And so there's a delineation between a domestic distributor, think US, Canada, and they're focused primarily on theatrical down, and then the rest of the world. Those are international sales. And you can break up your film rights into those kind of two buckets, domestic
Yes.
and international. And the
Yes.
film markets are predominantly focused on your international sales. And it's not every country, as Vivian rightly pointed out, it's sold by market. So you'll have like French speaking areas. It's not, you're not
Yes.
just selling to little France, you're selling to France and all the islands and all
Right.
the French speaking areas. So there's not like 193 territories that's sellable, but you do sell kind of regions based upon language and localization. And I find that the film markets are just much better personally to attend because that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, AFM clouts a crazy number of how much money goes through, AFM, and it's quite a bit. And then you dropped another nugget, which is Sanando. That is the competitor for IMDb, and everybody within the industry, like deep within the industry, they all use Sanando. No bus on
Yeah.
IMDb, but IMDb, I use it, but that is kind of the rookie website. The Sanando is a next level. I heard about Sanando probably 4 years ago, and the information within there, it costs more money, but the
Yeah.
information is much more robust because that's the other secondary thing. You need to know who you need to go ask. Like Vivian said, once she found out, like, oh crud, I need to find out who the acquisition person. You're not asking like, you're walking into a room asking, hey, do you have a second to talk about my film? Make sure it's the right person. And those people do want to take meetings, but you're hitting them at the right time and the right person with that. I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with film festivals because I have a whole reason behind it. What are your thoughts about film festivals, though? Do you use a festival strategy, or do you really focus? No, no, no. The strategy is the market.
Yeah, I think festivals can be great for a number of reasons. I think they can be great launch pads for filmmakers. If you get your film, especially on the feature side, if you can get your film into a really reputable festival and you can get some good press out of that.
Yeah.
Now, typically you need to hire a publicist to get really good press. So that's something that you have to look into as well and put money behind. But if you can get some good press out of a festival and then you can use those pull quotes in your EPK, you can use those pull quotes when you reach out to sales agents and distributors. If you're trying to get them to sell your film, you can use those pull quotes when your sales agents are reaching out to the platforms like Shudder and Hulu. They can say, oh, look, Bloody Disgusting said that, this was the best Giallo, of the decade or whatever. So you can use those things to your advantage to move your film down the pipeline of sales and distribution for sure. I think that if your goal is to sell the film, the film festival is not necessarily where you're going to sell your film. Now, I will say, so with Saturnalia, we got into Rain Dance Film Festival and we got into Dances with Films in New York. Those are two pretty good, tier two festivals for indie filmmakers. We didn't have any celebrities. We didn't have any name talent in the film. So we felt pretty strong about those opportunities. However, what I did once we got into those festivals was I researched, again, all of the horror sales agents and distributors in London, all of them in New York, and then we invited them to come to our screening. I would email them and I would say, hey, my film, Saturnalia, is playing at Rain Dance in London. Our film would fit nicely into your library because I see XYZ other titles in your library, which are similar to ours because of tone or theme or whatever. And I am willing to buy you a free ticket to the screening. So we had to pull them into the festival, basically. And I would say in each market, I reached out to probably 10 to 20 different companies. And I had one, take me up in each market. and then others that wanted a screener link. So it is a good tool. Again, any news that you can throw at these people, right? Like, hey, I got into this festival. I'm going to be in your market. Like, and even if they didn't want to come to the screening, I'd be like, hey, do you want to meet up for coffee? Do you want to meet up for a drink?
Yeah.
And if not, fine, I'll send you the screener link. But at least you're still having a reason to reach out to these people and to get in front of these people. But if you're not actively doing that work as a producer to get sales agents and distributors to come to your screening, they're not just showing up to festivals.
Yeah.
But I do think that festivals can also be good networking for filmmakers. So it's great. It's a great place to go and meet other people who are doing what you do, meeting
For
other
sure.
producers, meeting other
Yeah.
directors, meeting other DPs, people that are working in the same sort of budget level as you, or maybe a little bit higher, that, you can sort of start to network up, right?
Right.
And, chat with them in the lobby after their film and be like, hey, I really enjoyed your film. And I'm trying to do something at that budget level next. Would love to take you to coffee or buy you a drink tomorrow, and then you kind of build and maintain those relationships and maintain that network as you move forward. Same with the festival programmers. I always think it's a good idea to email the festival programmers afterwards and thank them. It's such a thankless job, and most of them are volunteers
Oh, yeah.
putting these things together. And it takes a lot of time and effort, and they all have day jobs too. And so I think sending a thank you from the filmmaker afterwards goes a long way, because then they will potentially be more likely to accept your next film when it comes around, because they remember you and they remember how great you were, not just as a filmmaker, but as a person, as a human being that reached out and said thank you. So I think that they're valuable on a number of levels for sure. But you can't just expect that you're going to go to a festival and then boom, your film is going to get sold, because that's not really how it works.
Yeah, that's kind of the old Kevin Smith, Tarantino days. Even at the highest premiere level, they're not even, Sundance, etc., not even seeing offers like that occurring. That's why I just at this point don't, in my opinion, if I was going to consult somebody, sure, put in for some of the premier, kind of tier one, tier two festivals, and try to get in, particularly ones that have a market with it. I mean, why wouldn't you? But if I was going to go to one or the other, the film market, in my mind, just because I want to go and focus on sales as quickly as I can. Hopefully, I've done the diligence on the front end of building my audience. The likelihood of the festival bringing a whole new swell of people is not strong. So I just want to get it to the market at that point, and I don't want to use an aggregator distributor. I heard the number, and someone challenged me on this lately, but I still feel that it's true. I need to validate it. That 60% of sales now are coming from the international market, and I think that's true. But someone was saying they were outside of the U.S. and they were still seeing a large pull from their films. They were in the U.K. was still very much American based. But when you talk about greenlighting yourself, I think that's a really cool, kind of quote thought process, something that I think filmmakers in 2026 resonates with all of us. And I think there is certainly, with the obvious one on the table being AI, but all the other models of distribution and how we're consuming content. We've got verticals, microdramas. There's a bit of an old paradigm coming into the new. With Third Eye Films, what is your kind of thinking around kind of a plan of action of how you're going to greenlight yourself, maybe personally, and then if someone was listening, what is there any actionable items they might be able to consider or take on of like, yeah, okay, I get it. Here's some steps I might be able to take.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have had the benefit of having two full, robust careers before launching into being a full-time filmmaker. And so having the benefit of having money from those careers and having savings that I can tap into, and putting that savings into the stock market and letting it grow, and then using that to sort of fund the productions. I will say that, and I think I mentioned this to you before, in the past, I guess post-COVID, let's say post-COVID, post-strikes, almost every single project that I've been hired to produce for has been entirely self-funded by the filmmakers themselves. They are, people that are, again, maybe worked in advertising, or maybe, one was a lawyer before, and another, has a camera rental workshop. And so they're taking money from these other businesses that they own or other careers that they've had, and they're funneling it into their filmmaking career. I think figuring out I'm really interested to see how well Saturnalia does once we hit streaming platforms. We will hopefully be having a release date next month. So that's really exciting. And we're kind of waiting on which particular platforms and where we're going to land. But we do have, three distributors working for us. So we did sign with a domestic distributor, a separate international distributor, and then we signed with a physical media DVD company. And I have read some interesting articles recently that, Gen Z is turning back to physical media and that DVD sales are on the rise.
I
So
hope
we're
so.
really excited about that DVD partnership because that used to be a huge
Yeah.
monetary driver for indie filmmakers was the DVD market. And when that shrank, it really pulled the rug out from a lot of potential monetization. So I'll be interested to see really how well that does, especially for us. Giallo fans are very physical media heavy. They love their DVDs and their box sets and their cover art and all that kind of stuff. So we're excited about that potential. But I think looking at that, I think looking at the DVD physical landscape, I think, for me moving forward, I'm going to be looking at independent booking. So working with people that book independent theaters and, a lot of them are moving away from a four-walling structure and moving to a 50-50 revenue or a 60-40 revenue structure, which is very interesting to me. There's also a lot of monetization of short form content happening. So I just made a short film and I'm going to make another one this year. And again, in the horror space, and there's new things popping up like Bloodstream TV, and they're monetizing horror shorts, and so I'm really interested after this short of mine goes through the festival circuit to try to put it on a platform like that and see what it can do from a monetization standpoint versus just putting it on YouTube or Vimeo and letting it just kind of be out in the world for free. I think more and more the younger generations are watching more and more short form content. I mean, I have two children, and if I give them a device that's preloaded with Netflix and Prime and Hulu and Peacock, they will watch YouTube shorts any day of the week, And so I think between YouTube shorts and TikToks and verticals and micro dramas, I think short form content is blowing up right now. And so I think that there is a really interesting potential in monetizing short films coming up that I'm excited to tap into and kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely monitoring that too. I'm kind of hearing the same murmurings. It's always hard to try to the analogy of skate where the puck is going to be. It's so hard to try to figure that out, though.
Yeah.
There's many times where I feel like I'm chasing. One of the nuggets that you dropped that I also say quite a bit that I know might be a little bit of a hard pill to swallow for some people because it's very counter to what I think you would find a non-independent filmmaking coach tell you. They would advise you never spend your own money to make your movie. And yet every independent filmmaker I've ever met, including myself, has never not started with self-funding. Now, I wasn't the only
Yeah.
one that put money in, but I was the first money in. I was the most money in. And if you created a business, if you and I went out and started a business about, I don't know, marketing, everyone would expect us to put our own money in. And if you're
Right.
trying to go raise money, they would all say, well, how much money have you put in yet? And if you
Yes.
didn't have any, that'd be a negative. Film is one
Yes.
of the very few weird things where people think like, well, no, I'm not going to put any of my money in. I'm like, well, then you're not going to get your film made because there's a
Right.
whole element of development that needs to occur. Your budget and schedule costs about $2,500 to get done professionally, like
Yes.
legitimately where it could be bonded. And that's on the low end,
Yes.
So I think AI is kind of helping as a tool to bring some of those price points down. But I think it's a little bit, and I mean this with all due respect, a little bit naive of people to think that they're going to put zero money into a business venture and expect to be greenlit. I like the idea of greenletting yourself does mean a bit of funding. I'm not saying that you need to spend the millions we don't have. What I am saying though that a portion of the capital needs to come from you. And I've always done that. And that's always started momentum. The industry rewards momentum. The moment you start
Yes.
to move and people start hearing, like, oh, crud, Vivian just greenlit a project, you start getting inundated with people just wanting to be a part of it or to work or to help. And that includes people with financing get involved.
Yeah.
Financing doesn't wait and observe, they're looking for things moving.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been my case. But talk to me a little bit about. So I love the idea of four-walling it yourself, and I hadn't heard that yet, where the exhibitors are maybe kind of going after, and it makes complete sense of doing a little bit better financially relationship with the actual filmmaker themselves, like a 50-50 split or something, which would
Yeah.
be awesome because that would definitely help everybody out. It helped the filmmaker out and the exhibitor, and people get to go and see it. So that's super cool. I definitely want to follow that, and I'm gonna look into that a little bit. But you mentioned the monetization of short form. Um, a lot of us can, I can understand the caution of not doing a feature just because of everything that it takes, including financial time. But doing a short film to excellence, can you talk to me maybe a little bit about a pathway there and kind of what that looks like and how you treat it? I'm assuming you treat it at kind of the same caliber and level as you would any other project, and what does that do for your team and you as a filmmaker yourself, going over and allowing to be on set. I mean, let's face it, getting on set is where the fun is. But just talk
Yeah.
to me a little bit more, maybe flesh out a little bit more for myself and the audience about short form content and where people should be thinking about that, even from a monetary level.
Yeah, I think short films are a really great way for filmmakers to get more reps, you know? It's especially if you are in the sort of above the line positions, right? Producer, director, DP, production designer, or department head positions, right? Like you don't get a lot of reps or a lot of at bats on the feature scale. So it allows you to sort of flex those muscles on a smaller scale and practice, your craft. Because if it's 5, 10 years between even Christopher Nolan making a feature, like
Right.
what are the rest of us? What's it going to take for the rest of us?
Yeah.
So I really think that there is value in creating short films and creating high quality short films. As a professor, I have mentored hundreds of students through the creation of short films from concept through festival submission. So it is very much sort of a muscle for me that I'm used to exercising. And I think it gives opportunities for people to, again, try to find their voice, try to find their vision, and allows them to put a film, again, on the festival circuit or to, yeah, use that film to try to monetize it and then, funnel that money into their bigger projects. So for me, I really value intentionality when I'm crewing up. I want to work with people that have no ego involved. I want to work with people that are collaborative, that are looking to, always make the idea better, plus it, take it to the next level. I want to work with people that are super communicative. I want to work with people that are interested in prepping early and prepping often. I think that's how you make a really good short is you put all of the time and effort in upfront into your pre-pro conversations, into your location site visits and, walking around in the space and shooting some photo boards and figuring out exactly where you're going to put the camera and working with your production designer to find the right props and your costume design. I think you basically just put as much effort into shooting a short film as you would a feature. A feature is just like 3 shorts in a row. So for me, my goal in creating a short film is always that it can be the best quality possible and that it can have the best possible chance on the festival circuit so that it can become a calling card for me and my production company and then all of the other people that worked on my crew. I want my short film that my DP just did or my production designer just did or my sound designer just did or my composer to get them their next job. And I think that that's the value of a short is that it's something that people can put on their reels, something that people can email to a potential employer and say, here's the last thing I just did. And these are the festivals that it got into, or these are the awards that it won. And then hopefully that turns into a new opportunity for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you said a lot of things that I 100% agree with. I definitely, it's funny, I actually call them intentional shorts. I think that's the
Yeah.
delineation that I have from maybe perhaps what other people. I think if I'm going to do a short, it better be intentional and there better
Yeah.
be a reason, there better be a purpose behind it. And it's definitely like getting your reps in. It's funny, every feature that I've ever been a part of is a gift. And people outside of the industry, they think we're just rolling cameras all the time. But, before too long, you snap your fingers and it has been 5 years. And
Yeah.
it's funny, I had someone challenge me semi recently. They were a crew member and they had a lot of credits. They did. And they kind of
Mhm.
challenged me on the validity of my coaching program. Because I have like, I have a good bit of producer credits, but 12 like feature credits, 12. I mean,
Yeah.
see, I think to a
Yeah.
Vivian, you'd be like, wow, that's a good bit.
Yeah.
But to
Fantastic.
a non filmmaker, or again, I mean, this person was a crew member, but they were just kind of minimizing, like, oh, your credit list is, abysmal. And I'm like, what do like, you don't know that there's a difference between me just showing up. And again, I mean, no disrespect for crew members. We love you. We need you. But there is a bit of a difference between producing something and a work for hire situation where I
Oh,
show up
huge.
day one and by the end of it, as a producer, you're there from birth to grave of the whole thing and you're living it the whole time. Um, so every feature is a gift.
Yeah.
I also find it kind of funny that when people are like, "Hey, Ron, the next time you do a film, let me just come on and let again, like I'm filming like every
Right.
but shorts is something that kind of keeps that momentum, truly
Yes.
momentum going.
Yes.
It allows you not only to get the reps in, but you're also getting your name out there. I became my name. I pray that this is true still. I became a finisher. No matter what, the film always turns out differently. But I would freaking finish that thing. I've never not finished one. I had one project I was affiliated with, but I wasn't the lead producer on. And unfortunately, that producer, didn't let it get over the goal line. But I think we owe it to people to finish, regardless of how they turn out. So I'm not saying every project I've
Yeah.
ever done is amazing. In fact, a lot of them were just doing the reps, but I was intentional about it. I would also say, dear listener, that you should think of a short film as a sprint, not a marathon. I like doing shorts of something I can do over a weekend because generally I'm trying to say, hey, let's go practice this cool sequence and try. I wanted to try the Matrix slow-mo fight sequence. And so I pulled
Yeah.
together a team and I try to only do 5 pages a day over a weekend. So that's 10 pages. And because people can give they're generally able to work for free in a weekend. But you start
Yeah.
going beyond that, you even start to feel obligated that
Yeah.
you might need to pay them. But if people start hearing you like, oh, crud, Vivian's out there like greenlighting stuff and doing stuff and making stuff, people want to be a part of that. And then if they see the quality, all the better. I do love the calling out no ego. We live in a very egocentric, even within the industry, it can be. But when I forgot who did the quote, but we can all get what we want if we just refuse to worry about who gets the credit. If you're
Yeah.
not worried about who gets the credit, it's all about the project, then you could probably be working all the time. That's definitely one of the things I also fall into being. When you talk about Third Eye Films, and I know you talked about genre film, but can you go maybe a little bit about the thesis and like why, and maybe even kind of the financial? Is there a budget range you're trying to stay within? Do you have like a clear vision of outline? Are you going to want projects maybe to come in? Or are you really looking because you're a writer also to do most of them in-house? Or just talk to me a little bit more about Third Eye Films and kind of the what you're looking to do in this coming year.
Yeah, so I have a number of projects in development. Like I said, I have a short that I'm shooting at the end of the summer. I have a feature in development as well. And then I have a couple of other feature-length projects that I'm sort of attached as producer for hire. So right now, the company is focused on the projects that we have in development and getting those off the ground. I think in the future, I would love to open it up and do a call for scripts. I think that would be uh, I would love to support more female filmmakers. I would love to support more female writers, and sort of make those opportunities for people. So I can definitely see that could be somewhere that I'm headed in the future. But right now we've got a slate of films that we want to produce, and so that's really where my attention is focused right now. But I will say, when I launched the company, I did a call on Facebook. I was actually looking for female DPs in particular, but I posted in a bunch of female filmmaker groups, and like the response that I got was overwhelming, like to the point where it's been 3 weeks now and I still haven't followed up with everybody that emailed me,
Wow,
DM'd me,
nice.
reached out. And it just goes to show that there are a lot of women out there working
Yeah,
in this industry that
sure.
are not getting enough opportunities. And I mean, I think this past weekend at the Oscars, was a landmark achievement for women in film, especially for Autumn winning for Best Cinematography for Sinners. Um, and I think for horror across the board, it was a great night. Horror
It
won,
was
8 awards,
big time.
which was
Yeah.
the most that it has ever won. So I think it's a craft that is being more recognized as being just as valid and valuable as dramas and comedies and, other films. And so, yeah, yeah, I think there's a lot of women out there doing a lot of really cool stuff that, for whatever reason, they're just not getting the opportunity, and they're hungry to work. They want to work, and I've seen it with my students too. Like when my students graduate, it's sort of really easy for the male students to get jobs as like a grip or a second AC and kind of work their way up G&E or work their way up camera team. And the female graduates can kind of get stuck in PA land forever, and they just keep getting hired as a PA and they don't ever get hired as kind of like anything else moving up the ladder. And that's just so unfortunate because I think there's so many women that have technical crafts and that, whether it's working in costume or wardrobe or costume or hair and makeup or camera team or G&E, like I really try when I am making a project to make sure that there is a woman in every single department on set. And that is my goal from, like I said, from camera team to sound team to post production. I try to hire as many women as possible. We are excellent collaborators. We are excellent communicators. We are excellent planners. We are excellent multitaskers. So all of that is like the perfect, combination of skills to work on a film set.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I have big goals and big dreams for Third Eye Films, and I really would love to one day open it up to other people's projects and supporting those projects as well. But yeah, for right now we've got our slate for the
Yeah.
year that we're trying to work on, and then we'll see where the wind takes us. The first short film that I created is called Do Not Rewind. We shot it last year, and it just got into the George A. Romero Women in Horror Film Festival, and they only pick 4 short films. So we were one of
Wow.
4, and we won
Wow.
Best Overall Short and Best Editing. And I'm going to be on a panel this Friday at 7 p.m. talking to Tina Romero, who's the director
Wow.
of Queens
Cool.
of the Dead and George
Yeah.
Romero's daughter. So I feel good about
Yeah.
the progress of the company and the quality of the films that we're making and where we're headed.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's great news. That's the reason right there to kind of why you do a short,
Yeah.
what kind of festival kind of bring you. It's not just about validation, but it's also context, as you said.
Yeah.
The moment I started to look at as a festival as more of an internal connection point, it that did help change kind of my understanding, because it is other filmmakers and we're all going to support
Yes.
watching each other as you're exchanging, and you should, business cards in whatever fashion you have them. The other thing I did was I did break out a camera and got some video testimonials right after our screening. And
Yeah.
again, kind of to your point, you put it into your little press kit and like,
Yep.
hey, here's an actual testimonial right after somebody just watched it.
Yeah.
They're usually other filmmakers, so they know what you're doing, and the
Yeah.
exuberance and the excitement was there. Um, so you've been doing this now for a good little bit. You have a good game plan, it seems to me. How would you consider discussing to someone about longevity in the industry? I always find that an interesting question. How would you approach longevity in the film business? I find, unfortunately, that it is true that sometimes it can just eat people up and spit them out, and people's hopes and dreams just get bashed against the rocks. And even me going from, I was full time as a filmmaker for 6 years, but the moment I had to go back to a full time job, suddenly in my head, I was like, you failed. Talk to me though about longevity in the business.
Yeah, I also do coaching and, one-on-one consultations with independent filmmakers, and I've had a number of them recently. And the thing that I find myself continuing to say to people is stop trying to do it alone.
Yeah,
I think
right.
film is one of the crafts that you can't do by yourself. Painting, pottery, like
Yeah,
the most of the other art forms, you can kind of go and buy the supplies and do it yourself, right? Filmmaking is one of those crafts where you need a team of people around you. And I think learning to sort of build your bench early as a filmmaker, finding, even in film school, if you can find the people that you click with as writers or producers or directors or DPs, and then continue to make projects with them once you leave school, that's your network of peers is
yeah,
probably going to take you farther than
right.
anything else. So yeah, building your team, building a bunch of people that are on your side that can work with you to support, because I think people find it overwhelming and people burn out when they're trying to do everything by themselves. And the
100%.
truth is there's only so much you can do by yourself. You can write a script by yourself, sure. You can put a pitch deck together by yourself, sure. You can write a treatment, you can write an outline. You can write all of these wonderful PDF documents that live on your desktop, right? But at some point, you have to then find other people that are willing to come in and help push that project to the next level, whether it's, hiring a casting director that
Yeah,
can come
sure.
in and, attach some names to your project, hiring a lawyer so that you can get all of the, the subscriber agreement and the PPM and everything in place that you would need to take money from an investor. Or, maybe it's hiring if you're a writer director, hiring a producer who might be able to crew up your project and get it off the ground. So you have to really, I think most people just they try to do so much themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And I know a lot of it is like, well, I don't have the money. I don't have the money to
Yeah,
hire somebody else. I don't have the money to hire a lawyer or hire a casting director or whatever right now. And I totally get that. But I think like you said, if you really want to have longevity, then you're gonna have to at some point put a little skin into the game, like you said, just like any other startup would. If you watch Shark Tank, they
yeah,
ask
yeah,
all of the all of the entrepreneurs how much money they've already put into the company. So at some point, if you're not willing to invest in yourself, how can you ask other people to do the same
yeah,
thing? So you have to put a little bit of money in so that you can hire a lawyer, so you can hire a casting agent, so that you can maybe you need to hire a graphic designer to build a website and a brand for your production company. There are people that you're just going to need to get on your team. And once you start offloading some of those responsibilities, you feel the weight lift from your shoulders and you feel like you're really going to be able to do this thing.
yeah,
Um, and I think on the sort of like micro budget end, and again, when you're fresh out of school and when you're young and you're making stuff with your friends, find the people that are willing to work for free on a weekend, like you said,
Yeah.
and get a thing done. Because yes, progress, is better than perfection. And I think the more that you can surround yourself with people that are, yeah, maybe willing to work on a thing for free or willing to work on a favor, like I'll AD your film if you AD mine or whatever, however it works out. And so that way you guys can get more reps and you can start to, build your reels together. I think far too many people just burn out thinking that they have to do everything soup to nuts on their own. And it doesn't work that way. I think it's such a team sport, and it's all about building your bench, and even, stacking it with mentors too, people that do what you do, right? Like I was telling you the last time we talked, Ron, I'm like, it's always great to have producer friends that I can call and be like, hey, this thing is happening to me. This is weird, right? This is a red flag. Yeah. And just have those people that can like have your back and be a gut check and help you through these like sticky situations, because there will be situations like that. So having peers, having mentors, having, other people that do what you do that you can call for counsel is extremely important. And it makes you feel like you're not so alone in your room
Yeah.
on your laptop just typing away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do find that in 2026, one of the good things that we do have is you have the ability to find community, and there are
Yeah.
people willing to help you out there. So I'm going to ask Professor Vivian a question.
Yeah.
Are there any books, resources, classes, things that you've read or seen that you would encourage people to consider? Any life-changing book that you read, or again, or any resource that filmmakers should know about, or entrepreneurs or business people?
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of really great free resources out there. I mean,
Mhm.
Sundance makes a lot of them available. They have their Sundance Collab channel, and they offer paid classes as well. I've sat through a couple of those, and I think they're valuable. Stage 32 has really great programming as well. Um, I think Studio Binder, which is actually used mostly by advertising professionals, but they offer a lot of free resources. They offer free budget templates, they offer free shot list templates, free scheduling templates. And so I often in my classes, if there's not a sort of software platform provided by the university for the students, I will recommend Studio Binder because they have so many things for free. I think the No Film School podcast is an amazing podcast to listen to. If you're a screenwriter, I always recommend the Screenwriting Life podcast. And I love Script Apart. They look at the first draft screenplays of really successful films and
Nice.
break those apart with the writer. It's always fantastic hearing the insights and how things change from the first draft to the final film.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what else? I just read a really great book. I read Save the Cat Writes Horror. If
Yeah.
you're big into horror like me, that's a new book that the Save the Cat community has just released, I think like maybe last year. And it's a quick read, but it's phenomenal if you're writing a Monster in the House story. So I can't recommend that highly enough. Directing Actors is a great book. I can't remember who wrote it off the top of my head, but that's one that I recommend a lot to directors. Oh man, I could go on and on for days, Ron.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm taking notes. So, where can people follow along? Where can people find you? Where can people, find Third Eye Films? What's the best place to
Yeah.
go?
Yeah, so our website is thirdeye-films.com. And you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at VR Owen. And for Saturnalia, the feature film I was talking about, that one is at Saturnalia_film. So you can follow our journey there. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Outstanding. Well, I definitely appreciate your time today. I appreciate you all for watching, listening. Don't forget, of course, to like, subscribe, leave a comment so Vivian and I know we weren't just the only two listening to this
Talking into
conversation.
the void.
Exactly, talking into the void. Although it was a good conversation,
Yeah.
even if it was just for me. It,
Right.
the stuff does help the channel. It helps the algorithm, as we all know. But I believe we are good to conclude our conversation with Vivian Owen. I definitely appreciate your time, Vivian. And remember, nothing is wasted. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Ron.